What's up, ChalkDust CrossFit? I'm here as the president of the Caitlin Walters fan club. No, actually, we're here. We wanted to help you guys out and give some interesting content regarding some injuries. So I know that you guys are doing a running challenge, so I'm actually going to go over a couple topics. I'm going to go over just some injuries that you might be dealing with, how to deal with those, things that you want to be doing on the road with running mechanics. We'll do the best we can here. And then we're also going to do some exercises. So the first one I want to go over is just the basic injuries. The things that you're typically going to deal with are Achilles stuff. It might turn into a stress fracture down the road. We want to be careful with that one because that's just put a boot on and stop working out, which we don't want. So if you think about it, if you look at your shin, the bottom half of it right here, the inside of it, if you're starting to feel pain when you're running with that, you're probably heel striking pretty hard, or you're increasing your running volume a little bit too quick. We'll give you answers on how to fix that here in a second. But when you get done with running, if you notice that this part right here, not with you poking on it, but just walking around is pretty painful, you want to make sure that you're just starting to kind of check it. And when you run, if it just keeps getting worse, you're going to want to sit down a little bit and take a little bit of a break, take a few days off. You can roll your calves out that we'll show you in a later video. And then you can also focus on some of the running mechanics stuff that we're going to do, again, in a later video. So that's medial tibial stress syndrome. The other one I want to talk about is going to be Achilles. That one's pretty easy. We do double unders, we do box jumps, we know about Achilles stuff. If you guys are running, and when you get done, Achilles stuff usually kind of warms up a little bit while you're running, and then later that night or the next day, the next morning, you might notice that the calves are really tight and your Achilles is tight, just like, practicing double unders or something. You want to make sure that you're getting that Achilles pain down and gone even before you do your next run. So with that one, again, just like the medial tibial stress syndrome, you're going to pay attention to how your calves feel later that day and the following morning. You don't want to be running on a consistently tight calf. It'll just turn into something that's going to make you sit down for a little bit. And then the other one is just going to be like the plantar fasciitis. I have that in air quotes because it's probably not actually plantar fasciitis. It's probably some trigger points in the foot. We'll show you how to fix that later. That one is actually going to be right on the bottom of the heel. The classic sign for that is heel pain in the morning, or let's say that you're sitting down, maybe you binge the entire season of Westworld in one sitting and you get up and your heel is really tight. You might have some issues going on down there, and we want to make sure that you get ahead of that. So for the injury stuff, we just went over Achilles tendonitis, we went over plantar fasciitis, and we talked about medial tibial stress syndrome. There are other ones like IT band and patella stuff that might come up, but I think those are the big three you want to watch. It's pretty simple. If your leg is bothering you, especially if it's one and not both, you want to just rest. Just take a day off. It's okay. It's okay. You can rest. You're going to take a day off. You're going to do some of the mobility stuff that we're going to talk about later, and then get back to your running program, right? So that's the injury thing, little piece. Stay touched or stay tuned. We're going to do stuff on how to fix that stuff and what you can be doing on the road to hopefully prevent it. So remember, Caitlin Walters is the best. Just keep the tape going and then we'll... All right, running mechanics. Is that one going fine?
Perfect.
Yeah, it just stopped briefly, but the screen turns off and then it's still recording.
Is it going?
Yep.
Sure we're good?
Yeah.
Great. Hello again, back at representing Caitlin Walters fan club here. We're going to talk about actually what you can be doing with your running mechanics on the road to hopefully prevent some of the injuries that we talked about last time. Really, if I want to give you the easiest one, it's a concept, or not a concept, but something called cadence. Cadence is the number of times that your feet strike the ground in a minute. And most people have very, very low cadence. The lower your cadence, the more force is coming up through your body every time you take a step. So we want to make sure that we're minimizing those forces because it's those forces that actually produce the injuries that we discussed in the last video. The cadence that you want is going to be right around 180. I usually try to get patients between 175 and 185. Most people are in the mid to low 160s. CrossFitters are oftentimes in the 150s. So when you go out, this is going to be the easiest way to prevent some injuries. You want to go out, make sure that you've got a clock, and set it to a 60-second countdown. Get going in your running, and when you get going, you're nice and warm. Count the amount of times in that 1 minute that your right foot strikes the ground. Your cadence is double that. So if you go out and you run and your foot hits the ground 80 times, that means that your cadence is 160. So that's not bad, but that's not where you want to be. Once you've established your cadence, my advice is to get on Spotify, online, or whatever, and find a song that has a tempo that's 5 beats faster than your cadence. So if you were at 160, you're looking for 165. If you're at 167, you're looking for 172. And you're going to have that as your sort of technique song. So every time you're going to make a playlist, if you're going out for a 15-minute run or a 30-minute run or whatever, you probably want to have that every 2 or 3 songs. And you're just going to think about your technique, think about your cadence every time that song comes on. Because once you have a pretty good cadence, it's kind of hard to run with bad mechanics. Now, we can get super picky, but you don't have to. So the cadence thing is going to be the easiest part. Once you've gotten good at running at that next level, at that 172, then you just find another one that's about 5 beats ahead. When you pick the right song, it should feel slightly awkward, but not impossible to do. If you went from 160 to 180, it's impossible. If you go from 160 to 165, it feels weird, but you can at least stay with it. And you would just keep working on that, and over maybe 5 or 10 runs, you'll start getting better and better and better at that. And with the cadence, you're going to reduce the impact forces. So that's probably the biggest thing that you can do. The other one is we want to think about posture. And when you're running, you want to be relatively upright. And you're just going to lean forward like from the ankles. You're not bending forward at the waist. When you bend forward, you're no longer using gravity to sort of accelerate when you're running, and you have to push off really, really hard. Well, the harder you push off, the bigger your stride becomes, and then your cadence goes down, okay? So if we can think about just being tall, relaxed, and thinking about working on that cadence, that's gonna fix most of your problems. So tall, relaxed posture, trying to work the cadence up to 180 is really the big picture here from this video. If you wanna think about foot mechanics, which is gonna be a little difficult in the video, your foot should either come down flat, or it should come down with the ball first, but the heel must touch the ground. And that's very, very important, because if you're overstriding, right, your cadence is in the 150s or the 160s, and you're overstriding, you're probably striking with your heel. When you strike with your heel, you have more impact forces, which might give you that medial tibial stress syndrome. It might give you the plantar fasciitis thing. It might give you some IT band stuff. We don't like that. But we need to make sure that your heel comes to the ground when you run, because a lot of people, when they switch and they start forefoot striking, which is good, they don't let the heel come down, and now they're just toe running, right? Which is kind of like doing box jumps where you never get your feet flat. That's keeping constant load through the Achilles. We don't want that. So when you're running, you want to either just get the foot flat while you're running. You don't want the heel to hit first. The ball could hit first, it could hit flat, it doesn't really matter, but you want to make sure that whole foot comes down, okay? And the other thing is, when you're running, your foot really should come down right underneath you. It shouldn't be out in front of you. This is a heel strike. If you're running correctly, your foot literally comes down. If you were to look at the strikes, it will come down right underneath you, and that means that you're not absorbing all of that energy from impact, okay? So we talked about foot mechanics a little bit. We want to make sure that whole foot comes down, but we want to start off with either the ball or a flat foot. But the big thing I want you guys to take away is really the posture and the cadence. If you have good posture and good cadence, the foot mechanics usually falls in line. So we want to try to get up to about 180 beat cadence. You're going to do that by listening to Katy Perry and Red Hot Chili Peppers, and all pop music is usually right in that range. So hop on there, find the song that's right for you, and try to work yourself up to 180 beats. And hopefully that'll keep you out of the tight calves and the painful shins. Keep you on the running program. Do you want to just keep going? You just cut them?
That was awesome. That was great.
Yeah.
Keep it rolling.
All right. Okay, back here with the Caitlin Walters Fan Club. I'm not paid to do that, by the way. That's just my honest opinion. All right, so we went over running mechanics last time. We started off a couple videos ago with actually some injuries that we were talking about. Now let's talk about how to fix them. The first one that we can talk about is going to be the Achilles tendonitis or Achilles tightness, we'll say. And really with that one, there's a couple foam roller. Yes, there's a couple things that you can do. One of the easier ones is going to be a foam roller. I've got my beautiful assistant here going to grab a foam roller that we'll show you here in a second. But the other one is just stretching the calves consistently. I would say do this before and after the runs, and you're going to, thank you, madam. I would do this stuff before and after the runs so that your calf feels pretty good while you're running and you're able to sort of calm anything down if it is starting to bother you. If you notice that the Achilles is getting tight as you're going, like every run it gets a little bit tighter, then again, you're going to want to rest a little bit and you're going to want to ramp up some of these exercises. So the first one, since my lovely assistant brought me the foam roller, you're going to use a foam roller, right? And it's pretty simple. You're going to just roll the calf out. Now there's a couple muscles in your calf. You've got the part down here called your soleus, and then you've got the bigger part up here called your gastroc. We can get all geeky if you want, but you're just going to foam roll where it hurts. So if it hurts more down here, foam roll there. If it hurts more up here, foam roll there. When you're doing this though, there's many ways to add force. The first one is just kind of hanging out. This is like your pre-CrossFit workout, just talking to your friends. That's not a lot of force. You can then take your foot and just set it on there, but just let the weight of the foot actually add load. And you're just rolling around. You're going to find these really nasty kind of tight bands. Once you find a band that's tight, you want to stay on that and roll there. If you want to add even more force, you can take that top foot and push down a little bit. And that will really work through that trigger point band. If you come all the way up to the gastroc, it's a little bit harder because you actually have to kind of move your body now because you can't really bend your knee very much. So I'm loading here a lot, and if you want, you can kind of come up like this and really just roll that calf around. You don't have to just keep rolling. If you find an area that is kind of radiating a little bit, that's a trigger point. We want to get rid of that. That's what's producing the tightness in the Achilles. So if you sit there and you just add a little bit of force here, and you sit on it, you'll notice it might actually start to twitch, or it might just kind of melt underneath your the foam roller. And then once it melts, the tightness of the calf is going to be gone. It'd be great if you guys could do that before you run, and if your calf is bugging you or your Achilles, definitely do it after you run. So this is the most non-invasive but still very powerful way to treat that. The other ones are just stretching the calf. You can do the good old one that you're doing CrossFit here against the rig. You just sit back and your foot's flat like this, and you're just coming up. The one that I actually prefer is you're just old school like soccer stretch where you're just kind of sitting here like this. Now, if you keep the knee straight, that's getting all the calf muscles, right? So you can keep the knee straight, keep the heel down, drive that, that hip forward here. But if you notice that the bottom part of your calf is what's bothering you, you want to bend the knee to focus on that. That's a muscle called your soleus. So if we're here, I can keep my heel down. If I do that, my gastroc's not getting stretched, but the soleus is. It doesn't really matter which one, but go after the one that produces the bigger stretch, okay? Now, very, very old school CrossFit thing are these floss bands right here. These are incredible ways to stretch your calf out. I don't know a better way to loosen your calf up than doing one of those stretches with this. If you've never used one, what it does really, really well is rip the hair out of your legs. Okay, it's amazing at that, right, Mike? So you don't have to roll the entire calf. What you can do is you can roll whichever area you want to work, the bottom part or the top part. What you're going to do is take it, you're going to put an anchor strip, so you're holding it like this, stretch out a little bit, bring it around, and you're just adding stretch. Now I have my anchor strip. Then you're just going to go halvesies on top of it. So I'm just going to go right around the calf like this, keeping the pressure the entire time. And you can just go right to the top part if you want. Again, you don't have to do the whole thing. And then once you get to an area where you think that's enough, you're just going to take your hand like this, still bring it around, and then put the rest of the loop back in that. Now I've got an incredible amount of compression here, so if I come back up, and I'm actually going to stretch the calf out, that compression adds a lot of assistance to it. So with this one, you can go back and forth 2 or 3 times. You can do about 30 seconds on each leg. If you're going to use a compression band, right, your next level, if you're going RX plus here on the stretching, you don't want to leave this on for very long for obvious reasons, blood clot reasons and blood flow things. But this is a really, really powerful way to really loosen that up. The last one, so we just did one for the Achilles. The next one is going to be for plantar fasciitis. And with this one, it's pretty simple. I don't even need to demonstrate. You're just going to take a lacrosse ball, and while you're sitting, you're just going to roll around the foot and find the areas that bother it. Okay? Again, you're treating trigger points here, and trigger points are focal area of the muscle that's hypercontracted and sensitive, so it might refer pain. It might make heel pain. In plantar fasciitis, it might make Achilles pain with Achilles tendonitis, right? But those are coming from trigger points. So what you guys can do with a floss band, a foam roller, and a lacrosse ball is incredible. You can get super geeky, but it's really find the area that doesn't feel great and stay on that until it does. So with the stretching thing, you want to do your stretches or do your foam rolling until you feel a change, until you feel different. That's going to make sure that it's opened up and doing really, really well. So we did foam rolling, we did some calf stretching, and then we did some lacrosse ball stuff. Those are all for really Achilles tendonitis and then also plantar fasciitis. The medial tibial stress syndrome one, that's kind of rest and manage it, like watch it. You could do a little bit of ice. You want to be careful because you don't want to get burned, so make sure that you've got a towel between there. And you don't really want to do it for more than about 10 or 15 minutes because you can actually burn the skin. But I would advise you actually just stretching and resting if you're noticing these things. So these are, you could do all of these before running even though you feel amazing, but if you start noticing that something's barking up, whether it's a hamstring, a hip, you can start stretching and resting. Take a few days off, it's okay, and that will allow the tissue to heal so that you can continue on the running program. I think I'm done. Make sure you follow us at CaitlinWaltersIsTheBest.com. And thanks a lot.